I am Constance Cherry, happy to be on the campus of Samford again. I work with students and pastors. I'm a practical theologian, and my job is to help practitioners think about worship theologically, help them to do worship, but help them to do worship in a way that represents our best understanding of biblical, theological, historical backgrounds that are ours to claim. So one of the things that has been difficult in the last 50 years in the church is that worship ordo, has been up for grabs. And there's been a lot of experimentation and a lot of style-driven worship services and so forth that has actually made the order of service negotiable. And I should say that I think that it is negotiable to some degree. I think there's lots of opportunities to plan worship in somewhat different ways. There is no set order per se. However, it's interesting. But everybody has to have an order. Everybody has to have a plan. So the question then becomes, what would be normative? What would be helpful? What would be positive? And I deal a lot with what has normally been called the fourfold order, which are just large movements of a service that are described by gathering, word, table, and sending. But I've arrived at that, again, out of my naivete. I grew up in an evangelistic sort of background where the threefold order, so common to revivalism, predominated. So extended song service, extended preaching, and then extended altar call for some sort of response. That threefold order. And then when I started to do more liturgical studies, worship studies, I discovered pretty quickly that the early church had a framework of 4 movements to worship. And it's as early as the earliest documents post-New Testament. So if you turn to, for instance, Justin Martyr or Didache or the Apostolic Constitution, the earliest orders show the fourfold order very clearly. So then that became interesting to me. Why would the earliest Christians follow that flow? And what does that mean? And then, of course, throughout my studies, it became apparent to me that that was the predominant flow of the liturgy forever, up until actually revivalism, because even the Reformers maintained that fourfold order. Calvin and some others and Luther didn't succeed at weekly communion, but they maintained the order and the desire. And so that was still in place, and it still is today in many, many places. And the question then becomes to me, well, why? And out of that, I think it's deeply rooted in the scriptures first, which show God to be a very relational God.